Feminism! Patriarchy! Hello!
We are
Annie and Konstantin.
And you're watching another episode of
Updates.
I have nothing to say this week. I am working on my papers, but you've heard about those, so I'm not going to keep talking about them. I'm making progress, still struggling, I'm getting there, I'm done. Happy Thursday.
I did a teeny tiny bit more.
So what do we have here?
This is a presentation I've been working on for the MFG, which is the Medien- and Filmgesellschaft Baden-Württemberg, which is basically a state program to support film and multimedia productions. So the idea is we are going to go there and do a little presentation about the life hacks and see if they can support us in any way. And this is a thing I've been working on. So basically we are going to introduce ourselves, show our lovely faces, tell the people who we are. Then we're going to brag about our very fancy YouTube channel and the projects we've been working on and the updates we've been constantly producing for, like, this is the 60th episode, which is a thing to be proud of in and on and off itself, I guess. And after we've shown the people how awesome and cool we are, we're going to talk about the life hacks. Talking about how we started it a year ago, and then there are 3 episodes now, and that we've been financing it by ourselves with a little bit of help of the Verfasste Studierendenschaft, and that even though we don't have many viewers yet, the feedback so far and the interaction so far has been incredibly positive and incredibly enriching to our lives. So we would want to use that as an indicator to expand on that project, and that's the reason why we are doing this presentation. So there are like the 3 steps or 3 phases we want to expand on that project, and the first one is obviously to create more episodes, including work and school and how to help and how to accept help, and also a website, which is, well, right now we're just one of the gazillion videos on YouTube, but if you're able to find us on the interwebs with additional information, would expand our possibilities to help people, to connect to people way more. And it's important that this not only works on the computers but also on mobile. And that's how far I came so far. So the next step would be the little life hack book we've been talking about. So this is the idea behind this presentation, and it's very helpful to remind ourselves doing that presentation why we're doing it, what our goal is. So this is what I've been doing the last week and what I want to continue in the next days. And when I'm done with that, I can finally, I will be in the mindset again to sit down and work on my master's thesis. So this is what I've been doing.
So my epiphany of this week is all about structure. And it's a thing that I keep struggling with and that I keep battling with, in part with my own work habits, and then in part because inevitably when you work with other people, structures tend to clash. Case in point. Konstantin and I work together incredibly well in like a million regards, but one of the ways that we're fundamentally different is that I very much like to plan. When I get anxious, it's what I do. I want to plan out the next couple of weeks, months, maybe, and know relatively exactly what's happening when, and what to prepare for, and what is generally going on in my life. And when I have that framework, I can be flexible. I can, change some things around with enough notice. Unless I'm very anxious, then I don't do that well. But I like to plan. I like to structure, and I like to plot things out ahead of time. Konstantin very much loves efficiency, but he is a lot more spontaneous than I am. He kind of likes to have that freedom to navigate, to have that open possibility to just kind of go on a whim with whatever feels right at that moment, which is wonderful when I can flow with it, but I need my structure around it. So that's a thing where we clash a lot and trying to, find compromises between building that framework that works for me and still giving him enough freedom to do his thing. And today is one of those days where that's just very frustrating, because I keep trying to figure out where I'm working when and what I'm doing and how my life is going to plan out. And that's not something I can impose, really. And I tend to try to think of solutions and best compromises to, solve it once and for all and not ever have that problem ever again. So I think my epiphany of today is that is never going to happen, and that's actually kind of a good thing. That's actually kind of why this whole thing is working and why we do make such a good team. Because we have both. We have the long-term structure, and I think I help Konstantin work in that, more structured environment by creating the room within it. But we also have that quick whim, on-the-fly maneuverability that he's bringing into the equation and that he's kind of helping me navigate and helping me be better at. I'm a lot more spontaneous in our context than I would be on my own, and I think he tends to be a lot more structured in our context. Not that he isn't structured on his own. It's a very strange dynamic and it's very hard to explain, and it's much more complicated than the words I'm giving you right now, so just know that. I think my epiphany of this week is that most things tend to be both a curse and a blessing at the same time. And when you're frustrated with the curse, it's nice to remember the blessing, because solving problems is very, very difficult when you're just looking at the problem. But when you're looking at the opportunity in it, finding solutions becomes a lot easier, or at least more comfortable.
So this week's epiphany is a very existential and philosophical one, because the motive that has been on my mind the last week has a lot to do with identity, with your notion of yourself and the people in your life. I come to think of how, especially after a certain age, when you've lived a little and are not that old yet, around about 30, that not seldom you have spent quite some years constructing an idea of yourself and of your surrounding. Usually there are things that you take for granted, that you don't question. Because obviously you can't live your life constantly questioning everything, because you need some stability in your life. And I think it's just a human trait to find pillars you can build your life on. There's always danger that you'll get fundamental about things, about truths, about worldviews. And I think the trick is to find a balance between questioning your surroundings and accepting everything for granted. And this is a thing I'm working on the last couple of days, I guess, or months. I struggled very, very hard and very long with the idea of being an artist, with the idea of it being okay that I am one of the few who are chosen to live their life leisurely and create things instead of being productive members of society, which is not true, because you friggin' need art for society to thrive. And don't let anyone tell you anything else. It's a truth that is simply true, and that can be questioned, but it still remains a truth. I think now I'm at the point where I can more or less confidently say from myself, yes, I am an artist. And there are rules in our society that don't necessarily apply to me because I am an artist. And it's nothing bad about that. But I think it's also in my nature to question things. Like, I'm at this point where I have a grasp of who I am, of what I want. And this is exactly the moment where my nature kicks in to question it. Is it real? Is this really that what I want? Or is it just a notion of me being an artist, an romantic idea that has been planted into my brain by the stories and movies and songs and whatnot? And again, it's about balance. It's about finding that equilibrium of questioning yourself, but not too much. Of accepting that being an artist is a fluid state in itself. I think that's my epiphany this week. That it's okay to question yourself, and that maybe it's in my nature to question my nature and never be sure. And now for some home improvement.